Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Skip Mason,
pastor, preacher, historian, author,
teacher, librarian, archivist, world traveler,
collector, family historian, avid reader, and creator of the popular Vanishing Black Atlanta Facebook page.
But a lot of folks who love history.
Most importantly,
he's our
dad who loves his family and who taught us the importance of our history and having important conversations.
Join him now for this episode of Conversations with Dr. Skip.
Well, good Sunday afternoon, my brothers and my sisters. This is actually the first Sunday in our sesquicentennial year. Repeat that after me, sesquicentennial, our 50th anniversary. And last weekend, on last Sunday and throughout the week, the CME Church abroad celebrated its 150th anniversary. Last Sunday was a grand and spectacular 3-hour presentation with greetings and history and welcomes from various individuals on our beloved church history. And throughout the week, various districts also shared in presenting their own. And so today, I greet you in our 150th year. And I'm so delighted to have this conversation with a very special group of young people. But before I introduce them and before I bring them up, let me greet Bishop Lawrence L. Reddick III and Mrs. Wendy Jones Reddick, our First Lady, our Senior Bishop and First Lady, the College of Bishops and their spouses. Let me greet my bishop, Bishop Thomas Lewis Brown and Dr. Louise Baker Brown. Let me also greet the chair of the CIT committee, Bishop James B. Walker and Dr. Dolores Walker, and co-chair by Bishop Brown. And let me thank Dr. Teresa Duhart for her continued support of this particular endeavor. I'm excited because this is the first conversation in the 150th year for me also, but I'm excited because our panelists today, our guests are all youth, young adults, and they bring a very different perspective and a very different insight into the work of the church. And I think, and I know you will agree with me, that it is important that we hear from them, not just on special occasions, but that we hear from them regularly and that they are involved in the work and the ministry of the church. Before I bring them up, though, let me remind you that immediately following this conversation, I believe around 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can stay on the CME Church Facebook page and link in to the Women's Missionary Council presentation of the Rossi T. Hollis Department of this spectacular, the pandemic that tried to steal Christmas. And I know that it is going to be an amazing production. And so we want to invite you to be a part of that. And I'll remind you before this show is over. But I want to, at this time now, bring some incredible young people up and begin this important conversation with them. Let me get them all here in the room. They're ready. They look good. They sound good. Well, hello, young people. How are you?
Hello, doing good.
Good.
Hello.
Well, first of all, I am so delighted to have you here today. And even more importantly, to be in a very safe, as I mentioned to you in my email, a very safe, honest space to have this discussion. But I must begin by thanking the Reverend Sarita Collins, the Connectional Youth Ministry Director of the CME Church, who is also in full connection minister. And her resident church is a Mount Calvary CME Church in Mount Vernon, New York. And Reverend Collins, Reverend CC, thank you so much for pulling these young people together for me and being consistent and communicating with me and them. I'm just delighted to have you. So what I'm going to do, first of all, and I'm going to begin with Josiah and Jaden, And I'll ask you to unmute yourselves. I want you to introduce yourself and just tell us where you're from, where you're in school, and if you hold any office. And then we're going to jump right into our conversation, okay? So we're going to start with the Hill brothers. Go ahead.
So my name is Shayna Hill. I live in Colorado and I go to Liberty High School. My name is Jaden Hill. I also live in Colorado and I go to Liberty High School.
Excellent. Excellent. And what grade are you in, Josiah and Jaden?
I'm a junior and he's a freshman.
And he's a freshman. Excellent. Thank you so much. Sister Ashley, introduce you.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I live in Washington, D.C. Well, that's where my church is. I am currently a senior in high school at Chesapeake Math and IT South, and I am the youth president for the 7th Episcopal District. So I'm happy to be here.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Brother Miguel, unmute yourself. Miguel, can you hear me? If you could unmute yourself, there you go, and introduce yourself. All right, Miguel, we can see you, but we can't hear you. Well, we're having a little technical difficulty with Miguel, and so we'll come back with him. You know, that's the way it is in this age of, social media and technology, but we'll come back and present Miguel. Let's see, we have Brother Jeremy Samuel. Unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Samuel. I'm from Oakland, California. I go to BB Memorial Cathedral in Oakland. I'm a freshman in college. I go to Loyola University in Maryland.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. And we have, let me add Shayna also here. Welcome, Shayna.
Hello.
Glad to have you. Let's see, Minister Shay Thompson, would you introduce yourself, please?
I'd like to say good afternoon to everybody who is viewing this broadcast. My name is Shay Thompson. I'm a proud sophomore attending the prestigious Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee. In the CME Church, I'm a local preacher, and I'm proud to serve as a youth representative of the 2nd Episcopal District. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Minister Shay. Thank you. Brother Christian, would you introduce yourself, please? Christian, unmute yourself. Can you hear me? Christian, we can't hear you.
What?
Okay, now can you introduce yourself? We couldn't hear you. Look like you might be having a little technical difficulty, a little Wi-Fi, but we'll work it out.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christian Webb. I live in Miami, Florida. I go to Dr. Michael Crop Senior High School, and I'm in 9th grade. And I attend Trinity CME Church.
Excellent, excellent. All right, thank you. And Shayna, would you introduce yourself, please? Unmute yourself. Okay.
Hello.
There you go. All right.
Yeah. Hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Shayna Hill. I am the VP representative for the 4th Episcopal District for the CME Church, and I'm also the vice president of the entire connection for the youth as a representative. That's as of 2016. And currently, I am a junior theater performance major at Dillard University in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I'm a member of Calvary Tabernacle CME Church in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Excellent, excellent. And let me see, did I miss anyone? TK dropped out, but hopefully she'll be back shortly. But I'm glad to have you now. None of you mentioned who your pastor was. So I need everybody to unmute yourself because we got some pastors that are watching. Amen. So Josiah and Jaden, who's your pastor?
Our pastor is our father, Reverend Anthony C. Hill.
Wonderful. Ashley, who's your pastor?
My pastor is Reverend Marcus Rogers at St. John CME Church in Washington, D.C.
I know Marcus. That was my classmate in seminary. Jeremy, who's your pastor?
My pastor is Dr. Charlie Haynes Jr.
I know Dr. Haynes. He's watching too. Christian, who's your pastor?
My pastor is Pastor Marquise Hardrick.
Pastor Marquise Hardrick, my friend. I know him well down at Trinity. Shayna, who's your pastor?
My pastor is Reverend Dwayne A. Hill Sr., also my father, from Calvary Tabernacle. Yes.
Amen. Your daddy. And Minister Shay, who's your pastor?
My pastor is the Reverend Dr. Natalie Obi of Trinity CME Church right here in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we're glad to have you. And we're going to just jump right into it. And as some folks deal with some of the difficulties, when they come back in, we'll bring them. So I need somebody right now, before we begin, to tell me who can just give me just a minute history on the CME Church without looking at any notes. Who can tell me when it was founded and where it was founded and why it was founded? Come on. Not everybody raise your hand at one time. I need somebody who can tell me. Can somebody tell me? I'm going back into my classroom mode now. I'm giving you a pop quiz on the first day of class because you're supposed to be. Does anybody know? And listen, if you don't know, that's okay. We're going to make sure from this day going forward that you know. Can anybody tell me what year? Can you take a guess?
I'll take a stab at it. The CME Church was founded on December 16th, 1870 in Jackson, Tennessee.
Excellent. Now, because Minister Shay is a minister, I know he didn't just Google that quickly and pull it up. I know that. But yes, December 16th, 1870. We are celebrating 150 years. So going forward from now on, that is a date that you should know and remember as a part of the CME Church. All right. And we're not going to talk a whole lot about the history. We did that last Sunday. You know, we want to talk about the future, but you got to be grounded in the history, you know, of it. And I think perhaps that we're going to have to do a better job in reaching our young people to make sure that you understand the history. Now, Bishop Lakey has written a wonderful book, and several others, Dr. Somerville, Dr. Spraggan, and others have written books. But we need to make sure that all of our youth understand December 16th, 1870 is the founding date. Now, we were founded in Jackson, Tennessee, and there were 41 ex-slaves. So that's all we're going to do with the history. Now we're going to talk about your involvement in the church. Ashley, I'm gonna start with you. Okay, so unmute yourself. So what does it mean to be a youth in the CME Church? What does that mean to you?
Being a youth in the CME Church has honestly given me a second family, and it's given me people, and it's allowed me to meet people who have really helped me grow and actually helped me become closer to God. And it's allowed me to meet friends and family and understand different things about my history, I guess I could say. And it's really been an experience that I don't think a lot of people get to experience, and that I'm incredibly thankful for. So that's what being a part of the CME Church has been for me.
Excellent, excellent. Jeremy, what does it mean for you to be a part of the CME Church?
Well, being part of the CME Church, I got to meet new people, network with them, and I really love my church. I always learn new things every time I listen to the sermon. I even every time I listen to the sermon, I write down a little bit of notes, and I just use that in my everyday life.
Excellent, excellent. Josiah and Jaden, same question, you know, for you. What does it mean to be a part of the church? And unmute yourself.
It's kind of cool to meet a lot of religious kids and, you know, talk to them. Being part of the CME Church also allowed me to meet a lot of new people, go to a lot of cool events, and just get closer with God. Yeah, you get to understand more people. It's like understanding, because sometimes in the church, it feels like they might not understand where you're coming from because they're older. But when you have some of the youth with you, it feels like there's a level of understanding between you.
Excellent, excellent camaraderie and friendship. Miguel, can you hear me? Miguel, can you hear me? All right. Well, we're gonna go, let me add Christian back as well. Shayna, same question, sweetheart. What does it mean for you? And you are PK on top of that. Tell us what that means.
Yes, well, for one, this is something that, it's kind of been a part of my life since I've grown up. I've always been a part of the church. But being a very involved member, like everyone else said, allows me to be able to have a whole different family that's not my immediate family. And one thing about the CME church and specifically, which makes us stand out from others, is that we're connected and we will always be connected. So I always know, I remember going to college, I used to say, no matter where I went, in the United States, I knew I would have a home somewhere because there's a CME church somewhere that I can have a family that's not here at my home. So, yes.
I love that. There is a CME church somewhere throughout this connection. Minister Shay, tell us about what it means to you. And now are you a licensed minister in your particular church, a local preacher?
Yes, sir. I got licensed on September 20th, 2015. My late pastor, the Reverend Dr. O'Neill Sean Jr., recommended me, and my presiding elder, Elder Tracy Jackson, he signed my license. So, yes, sir, I'm a licensed minister.
Excellent. And so I ask the same question to you. What has this experience meant to you being in the CME church?
Well, growing up seeing me all my life, pretty much like Shayna, as indicated before, is really connectional. It is really like a family, especially when I got licensed. I've been exposed to a lot of great things. I lived a lot of different things. And now that I attend Lane College, I know, just like Shayna has indicated before, I have a home somewhere. For example, St. Paul is on Lane College campus. I know there's somewhere I can go, or even Mother Liberty. And so being part of the CME Church has always been connectional and has always been like a family atmosphere.
Excellent, excellent. Let me see if I can get Christian up. Christian, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Christian? Okay. Unmute yourself so we can hear you. All right. Well, we're working on some technical difficulties. That's okay. They're coming back. We know that they're going to be. Now, let's talk about the church in a pandemic. Okay. What has it been like for you not being able to worship? And has it been challenging for you as a young member of the church and trying to stay connected? Or are you enjoying the virtual ministry as it is? Anybody can answer that.
I'll say
Okay,
something.
please.
Me, as I said before, I'm a theater performing arts major. So of course I love theater. I love everything artsy. So in church, I really implement that in. So I'm in a lot of drama ministry. I do mime, I do liturgical dance. So unfortunately, with the pandemic, it kind of discouraged you slightly in a sense of the physicalness of church is not the same. And, everything has turned to like virtual and online.
Right.
But it has also taught me to get into the times, get more into technology. Who says I can't record a show and have it streamed for all of my church members, So it just allows me to be more innovative and creative.
Excellent. Anybody else? How have you been able to manage, Ashley, during the pandemic? Do you still feel connected to the church? Do you still feel connected to your pastor and the sermons that they're preaching?
So I would say for a while, I felt a little disconnected because we weren't in person. We weren't kind of with each other, hugging each other and fellowshipping with each other in person. So it was hard at first, but then it reminded me that I had to be a little more intentional about learning about God and about fellowshipping with my church members. So I realized that I had to put in a little more work, and it's actually kind of helped me in a lot of different ways. I feel as though that with my youth, we've still done certain things over Zoom and things like that, making it sure that we're staying connected. So I'm feeling, it's also allowed me to feel a little more confident that when I do go to college, that I'll still be close with my church members and things like that. So that's the positive side of it. But I do wish we could go back and fellowship together. I do miss sitting in the pews and having our youth meetings and things like that. But I definitely say that I've grown over this time and become closer and realized I had to be intentional about my ministry.
Excellent, excellent. That's great. Let me adjust this some. Now, Josiah and Jaden, how has it been for you? Are you watching services on Sunday?
Yeah, we attend Zoom services, and when the pandemic first hit, it was a little bit hard, but I think everyone's gotten used to us worshiping virtually, and I think we feel even more connected now that more people are attending services because it's virtual. So yeah, I feel like especially for elderly people, sometimes it's hard for them to get out, especially the sick and shut in. So when they can like dial in or do Zoom, it's kind of easier for them because they can log on to services that way. And my dad, the pastor, all the time likes to try out new things with Zoom and technology to keep the flavor in the service.
Yeah.
So it's really good. I like it.
You hear that, pastors? We got to keep the flavor in the service. We got to keep it fresh and inspire. No, I mean, I'm telling you, I love that. Because do you know on Sunday morning, there are thousands of worship services on Facebook and on YouTube. And so everybody has a Facebook pastor, a Facebook service. And so we have to continue to draw. Now, I would say the very same thing, and I wonder if you would give me your thoughts on it. Are there a lot of youth in your church that you attend prior to the pandemic? Are there a lot of youth? If so, what do you think the reason is that they're there? And if not, why are they not in church? Anybody want to answer that for me?
Well, we have a good amount of youth at our church. But when there's times that they aren't come, I think one of the reasons why you might see youth not in church is if their parents are not there as well. So that's something. And honestly, from the first question that you asked, it made me think about this, and it was like, what difference has it made? And I honestly think that the fact that people can't attend church today makes them realize how much they missed when they could and they didn't. They took advantage of that time and that in-person time that they could have had with God. So honestly, I think during this pandemic time, it's really recreating people's relationship with God, because they're realizing that, you have to find a way to serve him. And when you had the chance, when you had the opportunity to get out and go, some people didn't. So it's like now people regret that. And I bet when all of this is over, I'm telling you, churches are going to be packed.
You think so? Do you all believe that? You think the churches are going to be packed when we go back? Yeah, you really do. That's great. That is great. So, excellent response, Shayna. I appreciate that. Minister Shay, talk about youth ministry, okay, and the value. Do you feel, just based on your opinion, that the church is really connecting with the youth? Are we engaging and doing the things that we need to make sure that our youth are involved and grounded in the church? Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, to answer that question, I'll give a little bit of my experience.
Okay.
For me as well, being in ministry, I would have to say the church has really put their arms around me, if I can say it like that. Because when I first started out, I preached my first sermon at 10 years old, got licensed at 15, and so ever since then, the church has really been trying to get me involved. Because think about it, for example, my Elder Jackson, he allowed me to preach at a district conference once. I've gotten the chance to preach at Mother Liberty while at school, St. Paul while I was at school. Also, I've gotten chances to give the scripture at Lane College Chapel due to prayer. And so the church has really tried to give me more exposure so that way when the time comes for me to expand my ministry, I'll be well prepared.
That's great. That is great. How many of you all grew up in Sunday school? Excellent, excellent. Jeremy, talk about Sunday school. And was it beneficial for you? Was it impactful? Because, I've noticed, that even though we're virtual now, but young people are not coming to Sunday school much anymore. And I get it. Sister Shayna is right, because sometimes the parents are not getting them there. Okay. But would you talk about the importance of Sunday school, or do you think it's still important, Jeremy?
Well, I think Sunday school is still important because you also meet a lot of people that are around your age. And I feel that since, like, when I first came to my church, I met a lot of people that were around my age, and we all grew up together for the past 10 years or so. And I feel that we've gotten closer through those 10 years through the church. And I feel that type of bond, you wouldn't get that. It's like a different type of bond in church than it is in school, like friendships in school and stuff. And it's just like on a different level. And I feel that it's important that everyone should have that in their life. That's how I feel.
Thank you. Ashley, you agree, disagree about Sunday school and the importance of it? Or is it something old fashioned now and we need to find a new way to teach the Bible, teach lessons? What do you think?
No, I think Sunday school definitely been really influential in my life, especially when I started off young in the church. Again, I grew up in the church. So a lot of times when I was sitting in service with the pastor, certain things I didn't really understand because it was really kind of catered towards adults more than with the youth. And when I went to Sunday school, it kind of allowed that translation for me to understand what was going on. And it also allowed me to meet other youth who were going through the similar things and allowed us to bond. And then that kind of led to the youth ministry. So I think it's really important to have Sunday school, especially starting with younger kids, to allow them to have that foundation in the church for them to grow in the church and want to stay in the church.
Excellent, excellent. Christian, can you hear me? I know you've been having some technical difficulties. Miguel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Glad you can hear me. What has it been like for you growing up in the church? I don't think I had a chance to ask that question to you.
And I mean, not only that no, it's just a good church, like a good church. It's just, it allowed me to like meet different people and grow different bonds and be able to be myself.
Indeed, indeed. And Josiah and Jaden, tell me about Sunday school for you. Did you attend? Do you attend? And how has it been for you? Have you learned anything from Sunday school?
Well, me and him have been going to Sunday school ever since we were little. And kind of like how Ashley said, when you heard something that you really didn't understand, Sunday school kind of helped you understand what was going on, and it helped us understand Bible stories better, and it helped young kids get involved in church. Yeah, our Sunday school teacher often connects it to the real world to help us and the younger people understand what's going on in the scripture. And I think it's really good to have Sunday school, and that people should always attend Sunday school when they can.
Excellent, excellent. Now we're going to shift for a minute. Let's talk about the importance of the worship experience, okay? And music, all right? Praise music. Are these things important to you all? I mean, when, there's been this debate, that young people don't like to come to church because they sing hymns and the music is and all of this is a part of our tradition. But what does the worship experience mean to you? And let me see if I can ask it a different way. Do you get bored sometime in church like I did when we were growing up? And this is no reflection on your pastor. All right, let me say that clearly, because you got to go back and live with your pastor, because I know some of y'all got some preaching pastors, some singing pastors, and some involved pastors. But for many kids, and there have been many studies that say that the millennials are not in church. You know, they're not connecting to the traditions and the culture. You know, every church is different. I think, as somebody indicated, you know, and so we can't do a generalization of it. But how important is worship to you? How important is the music to you? And are you, as we say, are you being filled? Can we improve on the music, you know, in the church? Should we explore a broad range? Somebody talk to me and give me your thoughts. Anybody? Go ahead, Shayna.
I, um, luckily enough, my pastor is my father. So if I'm feeling something, I'm going to tell my father exactly how I feel about
Right.
service. And I think that's the best thing, because my pastor is very open, and he wants to continue to reach the youth and reach the younger generation. But I do think music is huge. The church environment is huge. And one thing I've learned growing up, and I've learned from my friends, and, you know, being the most churchy friend, you learn a lot from, you know, those that you're around. And let's just say I might be in church, I might be filled, I might get my most fulfillment in the sermon. My friend might get her most fulfillment in the song that they sang. My other friend might get the most fulfillment in the dance that she saw. So I really feels like it's good to keep different visuals and different types of worship to be able to reach all different crowds. Not everybody can just get filled from the sermon. Not everybody can just get filled from different stuff. So I really think it's good to keep different aspects of service, genres of music, as long as the basis. That's why going to different things, and you will hear adults talking about all that rap music and that da da da. If you listen to some of the rap nowadays that have a spiritual basis behind it, the message can be extraordinary. But we just have to open ourselves up to, you know, move into the times. That during the time that the hymns were created, it was for that time. It was for the people. Of course, we can still sing them, we can still bring them back, but now we're in a new generation. So why not pick up with it by still bringing God with it, but just in a different way?
I like that. I like that. Kristen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent, excellent. Glad you can. What do you think? What is the impact of music in the church? How important is that to you and to those of your age? That when you go to church on Sunday, that there's music that ministers to you and your age group?
Well, for me in the church with music, when I listen to the music, it uplifts my spirit, my soul, because I could be having a bad day and I could be having my headphones in and I just throw on some church music, and that really changes my decision that I'm gonna make that day. And for the people around me, if they want to know what church is about, or they can't make it to church and understand what church is about, sometimes the music helps other people because not everybody is the same.
Excellent. I agree. Who are you all listening to, music wise?
Well, for me, I listen to a variety of music. Some day for gospel, it's either Marvin Sapp, Kirk Franklin, Fran Hammond, a whole lot of gospel artists, like 90s hip hop, for example. Some days I feel like I need to listen to some Tupac, sometimes some Biggie, sometimes some, who else?
Right.
Anybody who was big back then. And, you know,
Sure.
something that can uplift my spirit, because me personally, I need a song to motivate me. I need a song to tell me about my society. I need a song to tell me just how to get my day going, because if nothing's gonna fill your spirit, you're gonna be empty for the rest of the day. So I need something to get me going, to get me ready, to get me moving. It could be either gospel,
That's
or it could
great.
be something
That
uplifting.
is great. Josiah, Jaden, who do you all listen to?
If it's gospel, I mainly like to listen to Kiara Sheard and Kirk Franklin. But I also like to listen to a lot of rap music. And I don't really have a favorite rap artist, but I really like rap music because a lot of like elderly people don't know this, but a lot of rappers use like their music to talk about politics, race, religion.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for rappers who go outside the norm and talk about serious issues and try to make a change in their community. Yeah,
I agree. Josiah, go ahead.
Sorry, I really appreciate gospel music. I also listen to a lot of rap, like my brother. My brother has a gospel playlist on Spotify. So really, I really love gospel music. I love music in general. It gives me a good feeling. Sometimes I be playing my drums downstairs to music. I just really like music. Music makes me feel good.
That's great. And so I come back to my question, my original question. And Shayna, you touched on it a little, but how important is music in the church? Is it important, Ashley, Miguel, and Jeremy, to have good music ministry, to have diversity? Y'all talk to us because you got folks listening, your own preachers. And when we come back to the church, the building per se, as you all say, it's going to be packed and overflowing. People are going to be coming back in, whatever we've been ministering to people in this pandemic, if you will, we got to continue to do that. And so the music ministry in some instances can make a break. What do you all say?
I in a sense, sorry, I'm trying to see how to word this. For example, like, I just think if you compare, like, a gospel ministry to our artists and stuff that we might like today, and I would just say, I would think we should have the same power in keeping up with the times, keeping up with different types of music. But I think the main factor would be to make sure that God is always the basis of it.
Yeah.
In a sense of, I have had, or like, not encounter, but you know people who they might be worship leaders, right?
Right.
And it's like, we're worshiping, but it's like, if the church isn't full, they're not going to give their all, or if
really?
That's what's seen in the church today. Oh yeah. Some musicians, some people, if you come for a check, that's where we go wrong. And I honestly feel like no matter what is being sung, no matter what is being performed at a church, if it's filled with God, and if the basis behind it is pure, and if the word and the message is coming across to minister to people, it should be effective.
Yes.
The song can sound really good, but if you're there just for a check, or if you're there just to showcase and not to minister, then that shows a difference in service too. Like, I know people who might dislike, a specific choir, or dislike or didn't like that church that they were going to, because they just felt like it wasn't spiritually filling. Yeah, we sound good, but if you're not being filled, that's the purpose of us ministering, of us singing, is to be able to continue to preach and fill people with the word of God, just in a different form. So
yes, very good, Shayna.
It's really the basis of it, but I think it could be any music. I could worship up and down to a nice rap song that has a good message to it.
I agree.
If the worship is the basis of it.
I agree. And I love that it has to minister, and God has to be in it. That's what we do. How many? And I think I asked, or if I didn't, I'm gonna ask again. Any of you sing in the choir? Okay. And what are you involved in the church? What are the ministries? I'm gonna start with Miguel. Are you involved in any of the ministries in the church?
Yes, the choir for one, and then the second one, audio and visual.
Audio. Have you been able to help your pastor or any of the members during this pandemic to be connected through technology?
Yes, we recently just got a new streaming software to where it can just go nationwide.
Excellent. Do you enjoy the ministry? Good, very good.
Yes.
Jeremy, what about you? Are you involved? What ministries are you involved in your church?
I have sang in the choir before, with the children's church. So when I was younger, I've been trying to get into the music ministry, but then the pandemic hit, and then it just I really I just didn't follow up with it, but I still can. I still should. But yeah, that's pretty
Excellent.
much what I've
Ashley,
been doing.
what ministries are you involved in?
So ministries that are, well, before we kind of the pandemic started and we went virtual, I ushered, acolyted, and part of the youth ministry in my church. And those were different things I did. And sometimes if the technology ministry needs a little help, then I'll kind of help my mom. She's a part of that. And that's pretty much what I do in church in terms of ministry.
Great. Josiah, Jaden.
So before the pandemic, we would actually do the church projector and present like the slides for the church. We used to usher a little, help out with communion, and now we just help our dad set up the service on his computer. We sometimes do like youth presentations for the church, and that's kind of what we do as of right now. Yeah, and I also used to play the drums a little bit at my church.
Oh, wow.
Because the drums is my instrument, my main instrument that I use. So yeah.
That's great. That is excellent. Christian, what are you involved in or have been involved in terms of ministry in the church?
At the church, I was a part of the usher board ministry. I was a part of the youth.
Okay, great.
And then the choir.
I think I asked Miguel. Shayna, what about you? What are you involved in?
I kind of mentioned a little earlier. I'm actually over the dance, the liturgical dance ministry and the mime ministry. Kind of started up a little drama ministry right before the pandemic, but of course we're going to continue after. And I help my sister. My sister's over the youth ministry, so I kind of assist her. And now that we're virtual, I sing on Sundays. It's really just me, my sister. We sing. My dad preaches, and yeah. So I'm still behind the camera. I'm still going to church every Sunday because I'm in front of the camera for yes.
Minister Shay, what about you? You kind of told us a little bit, but tell us some of the ministries you've been involved in.
Well, before I got licensed, I was involved in the male chorus, the youth usher board, part of the CYF. And ever since this pandemic has hit, I've just been being part of the ministerial staff, being the worship leader. So that's what I've been doing right now. But as soon as this pandemic is over, I do intend to be back in the choir and to continue to sing with the male chorus.
Excellent. So I need you to answer this question. I like my church, but I like my church, Ashley, but you take a stab at it.
Hey, I like my church, but I'm afraid that it won't be that my children, when I get older, that my children won't be able to have the same experiences I've had in my church. I'm afraid that when we get older, that the church will die down, and not as many people will go, not as many youth will be in it, and that we won't be able to continue this for us.
Josiah and Jaden, I like my church, but
I like my church, but sometimes it feels like there's kind of a disconnect between the youth and the older people at the church. And like when they try to get us involved, like they don't really understand that sometimes we want to do our own thing, want to try new things. Yeah, I think it's really like a connection issue between both sides of understanding, and usually teenagers are going through like an important phase in their life, so it's hard to like connect because they're always so distracted by everything that's going on. So yeah, I think it's just a connection thing.
Great. Jeremy, I like my church, but
well, I love my church, but let's see. I feel that the youth have been like slowly disappearing, I could say, and I feel that there needs to be some more push to bring them back in, and I feel that once this pandemic is over, that's like the real mark where more will start coming in. But I feel like there should be a more push. But yeah.
Minister Shay, I like my church, but
I love my church, but I would like for the church to go out to gain more youth because, right now as a young adult, I'm starting to see that the youth is starting to dwindle a little bit because majority of our youth are between the ages of 12 to 18. And my hope is that we are able to reach out to more youth to get them in the church so that way we have a future.
okay, excellent. We heard from Shayna. Did I ask you that? Okay, Shayna, I like my church, but
I love my church, but mamas and daddies,
yes.
if you're not there, neither will your kids be. And if you're not there and your kids are not there, your kids will never get the chance to experience and grow their own love for the church. That's why I really thank my parents for that, because now, especially being in college, this was the time that mom and daddy can't tell me where to go nowhere. I can go to church whenever I don't feel like it. But I honestly have a strong relationship with God now is because how my parents brought me up, I was able to observe. Now I get to create my own understanding just from them having me in the space. So I love my church, but parents, bring your kids to church. You get committed so that they can be committed.
We're going to come back to a couple of these. I just want to hear, Miguel, I like my church or I love my church, but.
I like my church, but just like someone said, I feel like there's a disconnect. I don't know where, but like there's a disconnect somewhere within the church. Like instead of pushing this way, we need to bring more youth and young adults in. We need to bring more youth and young adults in. They're like, it's 2020, come on, like we need to we need to broaden our mind, pick different ways to keep us entertained and attracted into the CME.
Thank you. Christian, I love my church.
I love my church, but I feel like the older people in the church need to have some listening to what the younger people want instead of always having like the old fashioned of the church and bringing in us being this new generation is getting like boring. Like some new stuff need to be implemented inside of the church. And yeah.
I love it. I want to go back and sort of hit on a couple of things, that I heard. I hear this disconnect, okay, and that disconnect is not something that has just happened. It's been happening for a long time, for decades, okay, and we have to continue to work on that. Parents have to bring their children to church. I hear you, and so that means that on our level as pastors and as a part of the evangelism team, we have to go out and we have to seek the parents. All right. And to get the parents in. Now, some will say that if you get the children in, there have been some ministries where they bring the children and the parents will come. Perhaps that has worked in some instances. I don't know. But certainly parental involvement must be. Now, what I'm finding out is that many of your peers and friends of mine grew up in the CME church, went to college, and said bye, and have not returned. Are you all aware of that? Do you know of people who grew up in the church, love the church like you all did, and, have gone on, to other denominations or are not in the church? That has happened. And so we're trying to hear from you. I'm a pastor. I have quite a number of youth in my church, and we try to keep them engaged and involved. And, I'm a parent of two teenagers, a soon to be 20 and a soon to be 18-year-old. So I try to keep my ear to the ground. They're PKs, church kids, and very involved in it, but if we are not careful, when, my daughter's in college, my son is headed next year, they'll go off and, say, Dad, I enjoyed the CME experience, but I found another church or denomination, that is feeding me. You hear me? Now, I'm a pastor, okay? So preaching is a part of it, the music ministry, but also, would you say the atmosphere in the church has to be conducive for you all to grow and to expand, and that they're engaged. I'm talking now, but I want you all to talk back to me, because folks are listening, making wonderful comments, but we need to hear from you, because I really think, that we got to, in this next 150 years, and actually you hit it. I mean, as compassionately as you could, you're afraid that your children will not have a church, will not be involved in the church. And that could be a likelihood for many. Y'all talk to me. Let's have this conversation about how do we create the church that our youth are engaged and involved in. Give us some thoughts.
So I would say there's a lot of things that determine if our youth is going to come to church or stay in church. It could be the sermon, it could be the people around them, it could be the worship, it could be a lot of things. But I believe some of the top things are making kind of the sermons a little more, I guess, I don't know how to phrase it, but making the sermons kind of a little more energetic, bringing in different topics, speaking about things that maybe the youth are going through. Also bringing, like we said earlier, bringing in different types of music, newer music that have the basis of God, that we can still praise the Lord. We can do that, but have a little more upbeat to it. I remember being really close with my friends when we would be at annual conference singing the different songs, and we'll be singing them weeks after. And that really bonded us in ways that I never thought it would. And also bringing in more technology to the church. Right now, we're doing a lot of virtual things, but maybe we can keep doing that even when we start going back face to face. There's a lot of different platforms we can use online that the youth know how to work and know how to navigate and find fun to use and things like that can really help the church. So that's just my viewpoint on it. But yeah, I think technology and how we do different things in church definitely needs to be a little altered so we can bring in more youth and keep the youth that are here coming back.
That's great. Anybody else? Come on, jump in.
I think one thing that's really important is also doing things outside of the church, not just on Sundays. So like barbecues and other events, and I just like volunteer. Like my church, we're doing a volunteer thing for the Thanksgiving. We're giving out like turkeys and stuff. And I just feel like that just brought people closer, because it's like you're seeing people not dressed up, and you see people out like wearing sweats and stuff, and it's like you connect to them differently. So
Jeremy, while I have you, several, and I think including your pastor and Dr. Duhart, have mentioned to me that you have written an amazing song, and that you are very technologically savvy. Is that true? Well, of course it is. I know. I know. I put you on the spot, but I just think it's important that we acknowledge, and that you have done a music lyric app. I think that may be the same thing that you mentioned. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So I had the chance. So I'm a computer science major.
Okay.
So, this new game that this company was creating, I got to test it, and it's to create music. So you get to create the lyrics, create the beats. And so I got to do my first run through, made my own song. I was about growing up Black in America. And and so then yesterday, 2 days ago, they had their first celebration, and I got to speak and talk about what I did. And in addition to that, I got to add my own things into the game. I got to code my own things into the game. So I added like a quiz. I put my own song in the game. And so I was connecting my music and my coding talent together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is great. That is tremendous. And we have to, in our church, do a better job of recognizing the gifts and talents that you all have, okay? And allowing you to blossom, and to flourish, you know, and to allow you to find your niche and your place, in the church, and don't feel like you're hindered. Have any of you ever been asked by the musician or director personally? I'm just asking, what are some of the songs you're interested in, and what are some of the songs you would like to hear in the church? Have any of you ever been asked that question? To be engaged, to find out just what it is, because sometimes we pastors may think we know what the folks want to hear, and sometimes the musicians and the directors may think that they know, but we need to know. And we need to create the kind of atmosphere that makes it conducive for you to feel comfortable to say, Pastor Skip, Pastor Mason, you know what? I heard this song, and I think this song is just going to minister, to the people, and send them a link, or I've been noticing some things in the church, I've been observing it. It appears that we aren't utilizing the youth, and we pastors have to be very open, engaging, and receiving to receive that. Because Ashley, I don't want to agree with you, but I do that if we don't shift and make some changes internally with this group that we have. Okay, with this group that we have, and I gotta say something. And this is no reflection on anyone. Let me tell you how this conversation with the youth came about. All right. And I perhaps could be just as guilty too. But last Sunday, we had this wonderful 3-hour event. Did any of you all watch it? Any of it last Sunday? The 150th? Raise your hand if you watched it. Okay, one of you did. Okay. So anyway, it was phenomenal. And it had all of the leaders and all of that. I just noticed something in it, that there were no youth in it. And I had a couple of little pieces in it, and I'm thinking, I didn't suggest that. And, sometimes we just get comfortable, and there's no reflection. It was well done. And I said, there were no youth in this whole 3-hour production. And so I said, my first conversation today, and again, no reflection. So don't nobody get in their feelings, because I noted that, but I said that my first conversation today is going to be with the youth of our church. We need to hear from you and know what you're thinking as we move forward, as a denomination, as we grow, as we change, for the better, as we try to attract. Now, what are your friends? Do you have friends who are not in the church? Well, of course you do. Okay. And have you ever invited them to the church? Okay. And have they come? And if they've come, have they decided they want to stay? What is the feedback that you get? Because you're probably in the best position to bring folks in. Y'all talk to me. Give me your thoughts about that. Anybody?
I go. Actually, growing up, it's funny because that's kind of what I was known for. Like, I brought all of my friends, came to my church, my teammates. Everybody has gotten a taste of my church. And I've actually had some friends along the line that have joined and became members on their own. And honestly, the way my church works, one of the things that I always get is just the amount of love that's in the room. And that's something that my daddy always implements. Mm-hmm. Just as soon as you walk through the door, you're going to feel the love. And that's something that churches do have to be considerate of, because some people, as much as you can feel the love, you can feel the ugly looks as well. Mm-hmm. So, and that's one thing that I will always, be mindful of, which there's nobody in my church that, gives ugly looks. But I mean, once upon a time, there might have been, maybe before I got there, maybe at other church, but there's things that can turn people off to the church. And that is really the most particular thing you can do. Bringing someone who doesn't know God into a space, and then they get a negative connotation on it. that can completely turn them off from God, church, all in one visit. So I think it's very important that we make sure our environment, the environment of our church, is open and loving to everybody, because you don't know where people come from, you don't know what their experiences are, and that one positive experience can be what ties them to the church and keeps them there.
Mm-hmm. Kristen, you want to say something about bringing young people to the church, and just share with us your thoughts?
Actually, I asked my friends if they want to come to the church. They said no, because they feel like the church only teaches what they want you to know, but they don't teach what they want to know. And they feel like when they hear about church, it's just like boring to them. Like nothing excites them about the church besides going to children's church, having snacks and stuff. That was the only thing that they really know was good about the church. Not really the actual sit down and the pastor preaching and stuff.
Miguel, have you had the opportunity to invite some of your friends or peers to your church, and how was that experience?
I've invited my friends to church, and I explained to them everything at my church, of how much I love my church and everything. But one thing I've learned is that you can't force people to come to church. You can't force people to come to church if they don't want to. That's
true. That's true. Josh, Josiah, I'm sorry, and Jaden, what about you?
I've asked my friends to come to church before when I was a little bit younger, and they came, and every time they did, they would just say the same thing. Yeah, it was fun. And, and I never really asked again. I really don't know why, but once I got a little bit older, I kind of stopped asking my friends to come to church, because I really don't know why. But growing up, a lot of the people around me already went to church, or they didn't go to church. They already believed in God. So, sometimes when I ask them, they'd be like, "Oh, I already go to church," or I'm part of a different denomination. So, I didn't really ask a lot. Yeah, I also feel that, like, when teenagers think about church that are not in a particular church or do not believe in God, they feel as if it's more work put on them, because teenagers are always thinking about media and school and all that jazz. So when they hear about church, they're like, so I have to listen to somebody talk like for maybe an hour, and I have to be in church. Why would I put that on myself? And I feel that in media, people are not taught about how friendly the church is and how the church brings a lot of people in. And I just feel that teenagers have like a wrong perception, or youth, I should say, have a wrong perception on the church and what the church means to them in general.
Excellent. I agree. Minister Shay, let me ask you from a different perspective. You're in college. You're at Lane College, one of our great schools, okay? And so what is the challenge for you as a college student and as a pastor, well, not a pastor, but as a minister? What is the challenge for you to stay grounded? Because college can be very tempting, and but help us to walk us through from your lens as a college student and as a minister as well.
Well, at first it was kind of difficult because college is a totally different ball game from high school. I mean, you're exposed to all types of people, different surroundings. And, when you're in college, you're pretty much grown. I mean, your mom and dad's not going to call you and be like, hey, get to your 8 o'clock class or get to your 10 o'clock class or whatever. And so for me, I adjusted pretty well, because when I first got to Lane, I got into their Dragon Academy program, and it was for the summer. And then I came home for a week, flew back for choir camp, and I adulted pretty well. I mean, it was just pretty simple for me. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but it was pretty simple for me. Get the class on time, do what I got to do. That's it. And it was some challenges. It was kind of difficult, all kind of stuff I seen, all kind of stuff I heard. It was difficult at first, but One thing that definitely kept me grounded was being around intellectual and brilliant people such like Bishop Williamson, Dr. Claude Bass, who's the pastor of St. Paul, Reverend Dr. Carmichael Crutchfield, who's the pastor of Mother Liberty. They definitely kept me grounded and let me know that, hey, this is who you are. It will be difficult, but as long as you trust God and hold on to his unchanging hand, he will make a way somehow. And plus my professors, they held me accountable for the stuff I did. Not saying I did anything, but they also held me accountable. If I was late, they would tell me about it. If I missed the assignment, they would tell me about it. And so, just being that type of environment really kept me grounded, really let me know that, hey, this is what I've been called to do. And here we are.
Do you all connect with the sermons that are preached? Now, let me so your answer. It's not an indictment on the preacher. I want to be very clear. But do you connect with? I heard Christian use a term I used to use way back, sometime, boring. All right. And boring means that it's just where we are as a person. The sermon could be very engaging and exciting, but we're not quite there yet. Do you all connect when the pastor preaches? Are you following along? Jeremy, I did hear you say you took notes. Okay. But are you able to connect? Sometimes do we preach way over, where you just totally miss it? Are we connecting? We're preaching the word, but are you able to connect to it? Is it a word for you, or is it a word for the older members of the church? Y'all talk to me and tell me about the power of the preach word in your eyes. And is there a difference between preaching and teaching?
I feel like young people and the youth understand what's being said, but it doesn't really connect with us. Like the messages that are preached aren't really relevant to us, like not in a bad way, but most of the sermons we hear aren't really about stuff that is happening with the youth or things that are affecting the youth. It's kind of like they're only preaching to older people. So like Christian says, yeah, it kind of does make it boring when the subject matter doesn't relate to you.
Anybody else?
I can say like when listening to my father, of course, I'm out of me and my 3 siblings, I'm the one who, I guess you can say, and I'm being honest and transparent, I guess I can be the one that zones out the most during the sermon, So because I'm an interactive person, just talking doesn't really, it doesn't speak to me as much as like we were talking about dancing and the physical aspects of service. But also like Jaden said, there are things that I can listen to a sermon now and I'm like, oh, wow, that back maybe 5 years ago, I had no clue what he was talking about. Why? Because my life experiences as I get older, that's when I'm like, oh, that's what you were talking about. So it's like, I can understand youth not being able to connect. And it really doesn't have to be the pastor's fault. It's just in a sense of we haven't went through those trials and tribulations yet that they're talking about.
The level of experiences, right.
And that's why things like Sunday school, things like that can break down those big topics that are talked about during service and just allow us to relate to them. I love sermons that have analogies where they have a story or something. I can always remember when pastors connect maybe a biblical story to a life story. It just sticks. So it's really different tactics during the sermon that stick more. But yeah.
So Ashley and Miguel, someone said a lot of our churches need youth pastors. What do you say? What do you think? Would you think having a youth pastor at the church, and of course this depends on the size of the church and the number of people, but you think having a youth pastor would help in some instance to have someone that was designated to serve and to minister to the youth of the church and to plan programs? What do you think, Ashley, and then Miguel?
No, I think that would be very When I've kind of spoken with younger pastors and younger ministers, I've kind of connected a little more because they were kind of able to translate things in ways in real world examples that related to me. So I think that could be very beneficial. And again, with the church size, for churches that maybe can't have a youth pastor, that's why it's even more important to have those youth ministries and to have that Sunday school to allow the youth to connect with the message a little better than when they're just listening to the
Miguel, what about you? What do you think? Would that help
Honestly,
to some extent? Go ahead.
honestly, I think it's perfectly fine to have a youth pastor, but it's all about the mental connection and the dedication that you want to connect with your youth.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. So we're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, but I need for you all to begin to think about your closing words, and to offer some words that will help all of us that are listening. You have bishops listening, you have pastors and preachers listening, you have presiding elders listening. You have lay listening. You have your friends and your parents listening. And we're depending. The future of the CME Church is on this screen right now, multiplied by the thousands of youth and young adults in our church. It would be a travesty that in 3, 4, 5 years, I reach out to you all and you say, Pastor Mason, I'm no longer part of the CME Church. It would be an absolute travesty that you moved on. And so you have helped us. I know you've helped me, and I know you've helped others in helping to get a perspective of our church and some of the things that you think we can do to improve that. And so in your final words, your final thoughts, we want you to tell us, what do you think going forward we need to do to help to make our church attractive for youth and to make sure that our youth are involved? Minister Thompson, I'm going to start with you, okay?
Well, for my closing word, I will say it's already been indicated before, but just make sure you connect with the youth, because young people go through a whole lot. We go through a lot with the world, with what the media, and also, the youth needs something that they have a place to let out all their frustrations, let out all their issues that they're dealing with. And the church has to be the place where the church needs to be a place where they can hear them out. So it is important to have youth connection, but not only for youth, it's important for the church to be dedicated to helping the youth, because a lot of churches are not dedicated at all. So it has to be both sides. There has to be youth connection, but the church also has to be dedicated for youth.
I love that. And let me tell you what just popped into my head. Oftentimes at pastors' conferences and other events, we have workshops and training from great scholars and theologians and all. I think we need to have a workshop with some of you all. We need you all to formulate and come in and share with us and help us to see these are the things that we're going through right now. And these are the ways we feel as an active youth, a young adult in the church, that we can address some of these issues. And sometimes pastors need to just sit and hear and learn from the likes of you wonderful young people. Sister Shayna, give me your closing words.
I would just say that our main goal as Christians is to bring others to Christ. And the only way that we can do that is if we are willing to change. We are willing to keep going with the times. We are willing to not say no to everything new and just be transparent and open, because that's the only way we're going to bring more in. We're going to bring the younger generations in. So yeah, change is good.
Change is good.
Yeah.
And the pandemic has taught us that. The pandemic has shown us that the church, as Brother Grant Lewis, who's a lay leader in Georgia, says, that the church has left the building. And we've all had to learn how to spread the gospel in a whole different way. But Gail, give me your final closing thoughts, please.
I think what we need to realize us as youth, young adults and older adults is that as of now we're honestly having to compete. Well, not even compete, but like it's a challenge against the CME and like non-denominational churches because non-denominational churches is where other people are basically trying to go to. So as us as CME, we need to basically find ways to attract our youth and keep us here. So it's like I can't explain it. So
But you did. You really did. We need to make sure that we explore ways to attract and to keep them once we get them. Christian, give me your your closing thoughts.
My closing thoughts is always have open ears to other people's suggestions and other people's what they have to say, because just because you've been in the church longer and you see stuff going good for yourself in the church, it might not be going the same way as another person in the church. So just have open ears and an open mindset.
Excellent. Open ears and open mindset. Thank you. Jeremy?
I mentioned before about events that are held outside the church, like after church on a different day. I feel like those are like the best times to connect differently, and I feel that those should be more pushed, and people should look at those opportunities more.
Excellent. And I would add from what I've learned about you and others that we make sure that we recognize and scan and explore the gifts of the young people that are in the church. Ashley, give me your closing thoughts, please.
So I agree with what everyone said, but my closing thoughts will be that for everyone to remember that the youth have a lot more to offer than many may believe. There's so many talents and so many different skills that they have, just given the chance to make some decisions in the church, to give them the opportunity to voice what they want to see and to take part in the change in the church. And I think that spotlighting their skills and talents is a way to kind of show them that they're welcome here and that they have a place where they can be themselves and open up.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And Josiah and Jaden, give me your closing thoughts, please, sirs.
I think both the youth and the elderly need to understand each other and work together to make church more engaging for both sides. And at the end of the day, just let God move through them and work to make church a better place.
Yeah, understand everybody. Understanding is a big part. And make sure there's love for everybody in the church, and make sure you don't come off as or in a bad way, or that will be bad for the people coming to your church.
Wow, this is just so impressive. I'm so honored and blessed to be able to spend this time, and this is to be continued. You know, I mean, there's some other questions that I had that I didn't even get to because I think I mentioned I was going to ask you about your impression of Kanye's West ministry and what you thought about that. But and the reason I said that because lots of young people are attracted to it. You know, they are attracted to it. And so, you know, I'm not being judgmental about it. I'm just curious as to what may draw them. You all have the ears. Now, I will ask you this. Do you all listen to other pastors outside of your pastors, TV preachers, Facebook preachers, Instagram preachers? Anybody want to share who you listen to?
I listen to a variety of preachers. I listen to preachers like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley, Reverend Dr. Marcus D. Cosby, Reverend Dr. Frank Thomas, Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright, and of course the brilliant Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. So I listen to a variety of preachers to get their type of style.
Yeah, Minister Shay, you're gonna be a phenomenal preacher. You listen to all of the heavy hitters, man. All of them. That's great. Have you all listened to other preachers outside of your dads and your pastor? Shayna, I know you got to tread carefully, baby. I know that. I know that. But let me also mention that our senior Bishop Lawrence Reddick is on, and I did see Bishop Teresa Jefferson start. And Bishop Reddick, I will send you the link. I'm sorry, might have been a little confusion. My time is normally 5 o'clock, but we moved it up early so that we could have time for the Women's Missionary Council presentation. So my apologies, but I will send you the YouTube link for that. Mrs. Carmen Williams, of course, the First Lady of the 3rd Episcopal District, said to be reminded we must be changeable. Lifelong learning and flexibility is important for growth in our church. I think that she has captured what most of you have said this evening, and you have so articulated. Marilyn said, give them a seat at the table. I agree. We got to not, treat you as an afterthought, but we need to make sure that you are there when we are planning for church events, activities, music, the whole 9 yards, and not just going through ceremonial types of things, but that you are engaged and involved. And so I'm grateful for you all spending this time with me this afternoon, and I look forward to continuing this conversation with you. You are so insightful. And if we were all together, I say, let's meet up in Longhorn and dinner's on me. All right. So we may have to have a separate Zoom virtual dinner, but you are incredible. Your parents should be proud. Your pastors and church members should be proud. And I'm certain that your friends are proud of you as well. And I thank God for you for being here, and wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And we thank God this CME Church is the better because of each of you. Now, I'm going to do something that I hadn't done usually when I close out. But Minister Shay, I'm going to ask you to close us out in prayer. Okay? And as you pray, remember all of the youth in our church. And again, Reverend Sarita Collins, thank you, my dear sister. Thank you for all that you do and for helping me to pull this incredible panel together. Minister Shay, close us out, please.
Yes, sir. Shall we pray? Father God, we just want to say thank you on tonight. We just thank you for this great conversation. We thank you for allowing us to get our viewpoints out. And God, we just want to say thank you. God, we thank you for all of our youth. God, we ask that you please cover them with your loving arms, not only in these districts, but God, please watch over our youth all around the world. God, in the midst of what's been going on this year, in the midst of what's been happening, you've been good to all of us. So God, we thank you in advance for what you've done, and we thank you for what you're doing right now. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
In the words of Whitney Houston, I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. You all possess a lot of beauty inside, and I thank God for each of you today. My brothers and sisters, this is the last Facebook Live conversation for 2020. And I look forward to being back with you in the 1st of January as we continue these conversations as we now are in our 150th year. We thank God for you. God bless you. May God keep you in your care. Have a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. This concludes our Facebook Live conversations with our wonderful and beloved youth. Have a blessed